Final Fantasy VII Rebirth reviews just dropped. It's a lot going on. They're literally sitting at a 93 Metacritic. I think it's going to be game of the year, but I also want to talk about some of the things that I'm also seeing that may not be so good. So, if you are on my social medias, get over to YouTube so you can have a discussion. But overall, the vast majority of everything I'm seeing is positive. I just kind of had some keynotes, especially after I watched the Digital Foundry thing, that I kind of wanted. It was like takeaways basically because there is a lot that was said in there, but it was also good. So keep that in mind. Don't go crazy. I have a lot of good to say. I also want to make sure that we are understanding like these are issues. So the big thing that I saw was the performance patch that recently just got released, where they were trying to do their testing, but basically it was muddy and it looked bad. Obviously, when we played the demo, if you played the demo on the PS5, you would have saw that the performance mode wasn't up to snuff. It was basically looked like, I don't know, it was just muddy. So I ended up saying, and I was going to play this. If you watched or listened to the House of Will podcast, you probably would have heard me speak on this already. But basically, the I was okay with playing at 30 FPS. Um, that this type of game, I don't really need to be super responsive. This is not a shooter. This is more so story driven, great cinematics, and I kind of want to boost the performance, or not the performance, but the graphics. So I prefer to play it at 30 FPS so I can get a better view of what the world looks like, larger distances, take the blurry effect away. I don't really care about that 60 FPS that much. So some of the key things I saw was a lot of the same issues I saw in the first game. Was basically the assets not really popping in, or like the texture assets is basically is still showing muddy when you get super close to it. I hated that when it came to the wallpapers, like the background scenes of in Midgard. It just did not look good. So I think that's going to be a continuation, which is unfortunate, but at the same time, I think they boosted so much that I want to talk about that was good. Basically, the lighting looks really good now. There was a huge upgrade with just like the character models and the cinematics. I mean, the cinematics was always great, but it looked like even with the opening scene, talking about the cloth on the reporter, I'm talking about Sephiroth and Cloud himself. Just they really went above and beyond to kind of make these cutscenes, these real time cutscenes, look like CGI cutscenes, which is great because that it kind of gives me a more immersion. And basically, they are going to go all out to kind of sell this game essentially. But if you if you listen to the podcast too, you know I'm not a real big fan of 16, Final Fantasy 16. I was not a big fan of it. I didn't like the story. Thought the graphics were mid. This one looks like it was a bigger leap. My problem and concern is that this is tied to the PS5, and I don't feel like they have created a game of the quality of a God of War or Horizon. You know how those games, when they're 60 FPS modes and their regular modes, they are top notch, and there is no way you can deny that if you've played those games. This does not feel like it's in the same cloth, and I understand those are first parties, but if the game's going to be tied to your system and your system alone, I kind of expect that. Am I wrong for that? I don't think so. I think that is pretty common that people that buy this game are expecting a Sony level of quality simply because it was there. That's why I didn't like Final Fantasy 16. I didn't feel like the quality was there. And a lot of people did, and that's fine. But it wasn't one me. I wasn't one of them. I felt like it was a little bit mediocre when it came to the combat system, and I thought the everything being surrounded by the main character just was boring. So yeah, I really didn't like it, but that's not what I'm talking about here in Rebirth. I feel like the open world space, the expansion of what you can do, the combat system always being great, I think this is going to turn out and shape up to be probably the game of the year for me. Um, and I was not a Final Fan. Like, I keep referencing the podcast, but if you listen to it, you know I'm from the very beginning, the first episode called Square Enix Boys. Those were my friends basically talking about Square Enix games, and I just had no interest in them. So kind of did a full 180. Like, this is my most anticipated game, and I want to make sure it gets its justice, like its due justice, because it's like a really good game, but I really don't get the exclusivity part right now. I really don't. I feel like if this game came on PC, I have a much better experience, being able to run at 60 FPS and still be able to have all the graphical things that I like. It may not run as well as I wanted to, and that's why I was going to buy it on the PS5 anyway, because I don't want to be hampered by any weird experience that the PC usually brings. But sometimes it just feels like this decision is going to bite them in the butt a little bit. I know the market, the kind of market that we're in right now, it just does not help with these types of games, especially when they're tied to a console. But when you do that, I expect quality, and I think this is of that cloth, but it's falling a little bit short of my expectations. At least in performance. Like everything else, I feel like it's going to meet my expectations, but at least performance wise, I feel like it's going to be a little bit one of those games where you have to. It's so great, you don't care, but I really wanted it to fire on all cylinders, and I don't think that's going to be the case. So that's pretty much it. I really wanted to talk about that. I think it's gonna be a really good game. I think it's gonna be a game that, like I said, everybody's gonna be. It's gonna be some DLC from Elden Ring, and it's gonna be this. I ain't gonna lie to you. I'm pretty sure that's what's gonna be in the game of the year categories, and you can't even give it to that because it's DLC. But I'm pretty sure Elden Ring would be up there with this game, and I think Final Fantasy VII Rebirth is probably going to be a big contender. You can see it from the Metacritic scores. It's sitting at a healthy 93, tens across the board, some nines, but it's healthy. So that tells me that not only is the critics enjoying it, but I think the players will too. Um, and they all they had to do is just innovate upon themselves. They didn't really have to do much else. So I think the innovation of it is going to be cool to look at, cool to see, and we have to wait another to next generation to get the next one. You know how insane that sounds. You're not going to get another Final Fantasy VII until next generation. Um, but yeah, this is the one for us. I hope it does well. I know it's going to do well. I just hope it does exceedingly well from an exclusivity standpoint, and for the health of Square, because I don't think 16 did so good. But we'll see. Thank you guys for listening. As always, if you enjoy the content, please don't forget to like and subscribe. I want to thank you for listening, and I'll talk to you all in the next one. Peace.